sure you had something more important to do.
I thought it was going to be
I didn't realize I was 5 minutes, so it's fine. All right, see you later, guys.
No, you're not leaving. All right. Thank you. So I'm Will Strohl. Some of you know me, some of you don't. I'm the president of the DotNetNuke user group in Orlando. We stream all our meetings, so even if you're here, don't worry about it. You can catch us online on our meetings, or every first Tuesday of every month. We got some exciting meetings coming up. We got Chris Hammond, one of the DotNetNuke core team members. He's going to be coming in and seeing us. So if you do ever want to go to Orlando for a DotNetNuke user group meeting, because I know you think about it, that's the one to do it, because you get to hang out and see Chris Hammond and pick his brain and everything. After that, we got Tom Crack, who's the official DNN SEO guru. Basically, everybody in the DNN world goes to him for tips on SEO, except for Databank, who Brian mentioned earlier. So let's see, what else? So I'm about to take over the media model project. Right now I'm a team member. We're about to change that. And I'm a freelance technical editor for Roxas book that everybody keeps talking about with these coupons right here. I helped look at some of the code and words, and I said, this is great. Alright, so that's a little bit about my background. I have an active blog, willstrohl.com. I try to blog there. My goal is once a day. I end up about 3 or 4 times a week. And it's almost always .NET related. Every once in a while I'll throw in some personal stuff, but that's usually the movies or something else you might be interested in. Alright, so overview. Basically, I want you to just get an understanding of the widgets, what they do, how they do it. I want you to understand the core widgets. We're not going to go over all the functionality of all of them, just an overview of some of the general functionality and what they can do for you. And hopefully, we're going to build our own widget here. A lot of the code is already pre-done because that one just JavaScript is buggy. It's just hard, difficult to write sometimes. So all of it's pre-written, but you're going to see it in action. So that's what we're going to do. So hopefully, you're going to be able to walk out of here, go back to your office, and say, "Hey, I can build a widget." Here you go. There's the widget. Disclaimer, I am not a JavaScript or jQuery expert. I don't pretend to be, but I can get it done, I can figure things out, I can use the forms, and so I can develop in JavaScript and jQuery. By the way, who here does not use jQuery? Shame on you. Use it immediately, it's so awesome. If you've ever had a headache with JavaScript, use jQuery. Your whole life's going to be turned around. Ryan, I like to steal a quote from him because it's just an awesome quote. He says, jQuery makes JavaScript cool again, and boy is he right. All right, so what is a widget? Basically, it's a little mini application that runs on the client side to do whatever you tell it to. It could do any number of things. It could change out style sheets, it could change out HTML like you saw in the last session. Who here was not in the last session? Besides you. Okay. In the last session, we saw the Relocator widget. I had the same idea to present that, but luckily, we didn't do the same movement that he did, so I'm going to be able to show that again. All right. So anybody not clear on what a widget is? It means something different in pretty much every implementation, like Facebook. It's a little bit slightly different and so on, all these different services. But then .NET, that's all it is, just a little mini JavaScript application. All right, so the life cycle, pretty much everybody who's dealt with anything that's any of these tracks here, we all know this part, all right? But then at the very end, after the page is rendered and put on the page, the browser goes and sees it. All of a sudden, .NET at the very end goes and renders whatever widgets are on the page. All right. So your page will be loaded up, and depending on what you had to do and how performance intensive it is, you might see something change after the page is loaded. All right. And in some cases, you'll see that happen. All right. So where are they? Basically, I'm going to show you in the demo, but you'll find it in the resources folder of the core of your install. So if you go into the very first folder of your install, there's going to be a resources folder, widgets, and then the core ones are in DNN, and the regular ones are user, or the ones that you install are user. All right. So who here has not done any skinning or anything in .NET 5? All right. Have any of you done it in 4 or 3? Okay. So you're used to these little bracket keywords that usually put things on the page. Something new in .NET 5, if you're not already aware, is instead of those, we can still use those. But instead of those, we can use these object tags. So they're a lot better for our code. It's a lot easier to change. It's a lot easier for especially designers to understand what that particular piece of code is going to be doing instead of looking at a little bracket keyword. All right. So in this case, for a widget, what we have is we have the object tag with the unique ID of whatever you want it to be. All right. Make sure it's unique though. The code type is .NET client because it's going to be running on the client. For the skins, you're going to have things that say .NET/server. All right. The code base I put two different things here. If you're using the .NETNuke core widget, you're just going to put the widget name here. If you're using your own, you're going to find out that that's going to be a little bit longer. Right? And then declare. What declare is, let's go over our definitions. What declare is, it tells the browser that the object should only be declared and that it shouldn't really do anything else with it. Because .NETNuke is going to take care of that. All right? Yes, sir?
Is this going in the HTML skin or the ASDX skin?
It could be either. All right? And in fact, most of the demos I'm going to show you, except for one, they're all going to be actually not in either. You're going to do it in the text HTML module. All right? So you can even do it there. So any questions on the object tag, on how we use it for widgets? No? All right, so .NETNuke by default comes with these widgets. We have the embed widget, which allows you to embed different content like YouTube, your Google Analytics code, things like that. You also have the pane collapse widget. It allows you to collapse your pane, but if you're a good skinner and you have good skinners on hand, you really shouldn't need it. All right, PNG transparency. That's for PNGs that are supposed to be transparent but aren't in certain browsers. All right. And relocation widget, you saw that. That allows you to relocate a piece of HTML from one portion of the page to another. Right. And let's see, rotator widget. That allows you to put something on your page that rotates the images. Right. And that's really, really cool because I've been doing that the hard way for a long time. Style scrapper widget, we're going to see that in action in a little bit. Allows you, in some cases, you have a piece of code that you can't manage. This allows you to take care of that CSS that somebody else is importing that you can't do anything about, especially when it's dynamically generated by third-party modules. All right, and a visibility widget, which the star isn't that important, but that allows you to change the visibility of certain objects. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at some of those. Any questions before I get started with that? Yes, sir.
I did have you said after the page is rendered, then the widgets are rendered, and that could change the page. And I mean, is that?
In most cases, you won't actually see that happen.
Okay.
All right. In most cases, by the time your eyes see the page, the browser's already taken care of that. If it's something that's really process intensive, like you have a ton of widgets on the page, then probably you'll see some flickering going on. All right. Or things collapsing, or depends on what's going on. Okay. Like in the instance of there's a particular widget I'm going to show you that's the .NETNuke core widget. You're going to see that, well, depending on if it's still in cache, you're going to see it look like one thing, and then the skin's going to completely change on this when we go to look at it. Any other questions? All right. So we'll get started. First thing I want to show you is where these skins are. All right. So this is my default install .NETNuke. I haven't really done anything to it at all, except for added a few pages, obviously. All right. But I'm going to show you where these widgets are. This particular website runs off of that particular folder down there that you can see. Right? So this is my root folder. When I was telling you before, widgets are in the root folder. Your root folder is from wherever your website's installed. There's resources I told you about before. All right? And then widgets. That make sense? And then here's the DNN. As you can see, just really simple JavaScript files. Now, it's really important for you, if you're going to ever create your own widget, it's really important for you to know where those widgets get basically managed from and how. So if we look still in the resources folder, there's a shared folder there, scripts. Inside the scripts folder, we have a couple files of interest here. Init, widget, and widget.js. All right, I'm going to grab those and show them to you real quick. Should probably already grab it. Okay. So here's our init widget. Basically, it goes through and looks for whatever we need. Goes to instantiate some URL so it knows where to find things, and then it goes ahead and calls our widgets, right? Our widget.js that we can see here. So the init widget doesn't really do anything important that we're obviously concerned about. Now the other widget is pretty important because it has some functions defined. I'm going to show you one that's specifically recorded. I should. There we go. All right. So this is where it goes through and looks for the widgets that are on the page. Okay, right here. Basically, at this point in the code, it's looking for any of the objects that have .NETNuke client in the code base. All right, so that's what you saw as part of the object tag.